The word culture is Latin and means the cultivated, in contrast to the word nature, which means the born. Culture can be defined as the non-genetic continuation of conduct to the new generation. In its simplest form, does this contrast reflect the difference between culture folk and nature folk, and how their absence and the presence of agriculture that comes due. More fundamental is the unlike of culture and nature of the relationship between the sincere and the learned.
Culture? Oh, that's a huge question. You can't start without culture.
Yeah.
It's something about identity. I think it's something that a community can relate to. They have some ownership of, but they share. Right? But it doesn't. It can be musical. It can be visual. It can be spoken. It can be social. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else have that answer?
No.
Liverpool is renowned as a city of great culture, and I don't just mean the Beatles, because the Beatles came out of a very organic time where people wanted to create and didn't have the money, basically, to buy instruments. And it goes, if you look back at kind of the Woody Guthrie and the Dust Bowl of America, in terms of people trying to create art out of, well, what were pretty desperate circumstances. And Liverpool at that time, there was a lot of unemployment. It's one of those places, it's not just the art, the culture of Liverpool is that everyone looks out for each other. That I know people that have told stories about going out on a Saturday night in Liverpool and then walking home like miles, and it was quite safe even though it was a city, because everybody would stand outside their doors, so they'd see people come round the corner and watch them up the street and around the next corner where somebody else would take over and watch them from that corner. So if they were drunk or they were, everybody makes sure that everyone else gets home, and that's
amazing.
Part of the culture.
Do you think that young people like us take good care of culture?
Take good care of culture? I don't know. Because, culture evolves, I think, and young people take on things that are, things that aren't relevant to me become relevant to them, and so on. There's a difference between culture and heritage, I suppose. The buildings, the infrastructure of a city is part of its heritage, and I think that young people tend to feel more a part of that as they get older. I've become far more interested in history since I've become a part of it. Do you know what I mean? When you're young, it's like, oh yeah, old buildings, who cares? But when you have something that you can look back on and you go, I remember that building when I used to come past here with my nan, and and those kind of things. It's about memories, and I suppose the culture of a city evokes those kind of memories. Like when you first hear a piece of music, and then every time you hear that piece of music in the future, you think of that place that you were when you first heard that music. And I think those reference points are part of a city's culture, where you can walk past and go, oh, I remember when I was, and I did that, or yeah.
Britain was absolutely nothing. But when the Romans came, they brought civilization to England, which was called Britannia at the time, and that's why we call it Britain today. But in time, they changed so much, and when they fled from Britain, they left a marvelous country that was able to rule itself. And England today is a marvelous country. We all love it, and that's just a fact.
culture.
How do you use the library?
I use it just to study really, just as a quiet area to study.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
What do you think about the renovation?
Yeah, I think it's quite nice. Don't really know what's in there yet, not had a full look around, but from what I can see it looks quite nice.
Do you think that Manchester has culture?
Yeah, a lot of culture. I think it's a very cultured place. I'm from I live in London University, but I think that here's got a lot more culture than London.
My name's Caleb. I live in Manchester. Well, I'm from Manchester but live in Newcastle.
How do you use the library?
Well, I live in Newcastle, so at the moment while I'm at home, I'm just studying.
Do you do other things like go to concerts or?
Yeah, I go to Student Union sometimes for concerts. There's lots of concert places in Manchester.
Yeah. What's culture to you?
I'd say it's a set of practices that a group of people share from one place. So lots of people in one place will share a certain set of practices and share the same space, and that's what develops their culture.
Do you think that Manchester has culture?
Lots of it.
Yeah.
Based around music a lot. It's got a long music history, and I think that's where a lot of people share their identity through music.
So, now we know that the word culture has a different meaning. It depends on the person, and sometimes the culture becomes your entire life. Culture has existed since the dawn of man.
It is an undenying part of every human, and we can't live without it. It can be music, some kind of dance art, or a building. We have our own definition, but in the end, culture does have a special place in all of us.
So